One of the funniest things about football is that damn near everybody got short-term memory loss. There are defenders that could go months without making a mistake, and then they fuck up one time, and suddenly everyone's calling them a stupid donkey all over again. Players that have a short spell of bad performances, and everybody suddenly forgets how crucial they are. Odegaard recently is a funny example of that. Just a month ago, everybody came to the consensus that Arsenal was dog shit without him, and after he came back and led us to a few consecutive wins, the whole world was on his tip. Then a couple of draws and a couple of bad Odegaard performances, and all of a sudden he's useless, overrated, doesn't offer anything, hinders Saka, and blah, blah, blah. I love the saying that goes, you're only as good as your last performance, because that's deadass how some people act. Nobody's really safe from that shit, literally no one. However, it is important to note that that shit can work in a player's favor too, and it has numerous times. The other day I was scrolling on the social media hellscape called Twitter, and I came across this post that had sparked a war in the football community. It was a Robben versus Salah post. Now, these posts aren't really rare. Every other day there's a new comparison that pits the nostalgia warriors against the new generation purists. This one in particular, though, created a much fiercer argument for a couple different reasons. When you look at Robben, what do you think of? Bayern Munich, the Netherlands, a Champions League winning goal, a screamer against Manchester United back in 2010, vicious and unstoppable cuts inside, baldness. I mean, he looked like he fights Saitama in his spare time. But he had pointy as shit. He headbutt me, I'm going straight to the ER. Clean head ass, sharp head ass, strong head ass. Anyways, Robben nowadays is viewed as one of the greatest wingers this century, an unstoppable force with almost unmatched skill that stood out in a time period of countless explosive forwards that shined at other big clubs around the same time he was cooking at Bayern. For a lot of his career, though, the perception of Robben was kind of negative in numerous different ways. Chelsea sold him because of his inability to stay on the pitch, despite the fact that he was generally great when he played, and it was pretty clear he'd eventually become a star if he could stay healthy. The problem was, it looked like he'd never be consistently healthy. At Madrid, there was similar health issues, although he played the most league games of his career in 2008 since he was 18 years old in the Dutch league back in 2002. The problem arose when Perez came back to the club. He had left a few years earlier and his replacements had just been doing bullshit and signing whatever. So when Perez came back, he said, look, it's no beef, but some of y'all got to get the fuck out. I got my boy Ronaldo coming in the summer. My guys Kaká, Benzema, and Alonso finna be here soon too. Pack your bags. Robben was like, shit, you're not talking to me. And then Perez was like, yeah, buddy, I'm talking to you. Then he shipped him off to Bayern and Schneider off to Inter. Basically, by that point in his career, Robben was viewed as an injury-prone Madrid flop who would be out for 2 months if he stubbed his toe. It didn't help that he'd built up a reputation of being a choke artist too. By the time he hit 27, he was starting to raise eyebrows. A penalty miss in the Champions League final against Chelsea that cost him the trophy in 2012. A penalty miss against Dortmund basically ended their title race late in the 2011-12 season. That one was already pretty bad on its own, but it's even worse when you add his miss from later on in that same game. There's that unforgettable one-on-one against Spain in the World Cup final that he botched and Netherlands ended up losing. A World Cup, a Champions League trophy, and potentially another league title slipping out of his hands due to his blunders. They used to get on his ass back then. Article after article, think piece after think piece about how not clutch and overrated he is. At that specific point around 2012, there were so many different things you could criticize about his career that it probably looked like he wouldn't even retire as an all-time great. The definition of injury-prone, spent more time in the hospital than out. Even after moving to Bayern in his first 3 seasons, he only played 54% of the league games and couldn't stay on the pitch to save his life. A big game choker, only had one move, a serial diver, a selfish teammate. He even choked out Muller at one point during a game. He was bugging out. It looked like his story was headed towards a grim end, and I wouldn't say he might have been a streets won't forget player. No way, he was too good for that. But he would have been a Pogba, maybe a less accomplished Hazard. We would have been talking about him the way we talk about them. Then he completely flipped the switch. By 29 years old, some legends like Ronaldinho and Kaká were already starting to head towards washed territory, but you could argue that's where Robben's prime began. The injury issues never went away, but outside of that, Robben spent the next 5 seasons dismantling a few of the main criticisms that had plagued him throughout his career. It was insane because he flipped the narrative of his career while still basically playing part-time because his body was dead-ass malfunctioning every other week. Nigga was just hurting anything, bruh. Inflammation of the pubic bone? What? Then a hernia right after, bro? Are you serious? A flesh wound? What the fuck does that even mean? Did he get stabbed? And how did a flesh wound keep him off for 42 days, bro? This shit got me weak. Out for 3 months with abductor pain is killing me, bro. I know they were stressed as hell every time he woke up with any type of soreness. Pepe know if he was going to be out for 1 game or 30. Anyways, Robben is like the perfect example of forcefully taking control of your career and dispersing all the negative narratives attached to your name. Despite only playing 16 league games in the 2012 season, he was huge in the Champions League for Bayern, scored against Barca in both legs of the semi-final, and then scored the winner in the closing minutes of the final against Dortmund, finally quieting the big game choker allegations at least a little bit. He scored the winner in the German Cup final against Dortmund in 2014. He was also outstanding in every single game of the 2014 World Cup up until that semi-final against Argentina. From 2012 to 2017, despite the fact that he was consistently hobbled by injuries, he was undoubtedly one of the best wingers in the world. Despite the fact that he's clearly a legend and one of the greatest wingers ever, of course, it's hard to deny that Robben is one of the players that benefit from short-term memory loss. Is that the worst thing in the world? It's up to you. On one hand, I think it should be applauded that he forcefully turned his career around and changed the way people view him within 5 years. On the other hand, you could argue that it should take more than what he did to erase just how many blunders he had on his resume. The UCL winning goal and the German Cup goal were great and all, but he did crumble against Argentina in 2014, and he didn't have that many other post-2012 big games to really look at because he was injured for a lot of Bayern's late-stage clashes. There was that incredible performance against United in like a quarterfinal in 2014, and that's all I got off the dome. When he wasn't hurt, they were getting punted by Ronaldo and his goons, and there was nothing he could really do about it. So did Robben really fully redeem himself, or is he just a beneficiary of whatever happened most recently is all that matters? I think it's a little more complex, and nostalgia definitely plays a big role. The more things fade into the past, the fonder they appear. It's easier now to forgive Robben's horrible mistakes and choke jobs than it was back then. So for a lot of people today, the winner against Dortmund is enough to cover for it. Even look at the whole one-trick pony thing. Back then, people ripped him apart for having one move and being predictable and one-footed and all of that. Then over time, as he faded away and eventually retired, people started talking about it fondly. And then eventually it flipped into people praising him for being so dominant with one move. Time can do crazy things to people's legacies. It makes you wonder how we'll view some of the most heavily criticized players in the world now in the future. We already see it happen with players like Rafinha, who was undoubtedly a Barca flop at first and is now involved in Ballon d'Or conversations after his ridiculous start to the season. You can't help but wonder if we'll be talking about him the way we talk about guys like, I don't know, Robert Pires at Arsenal. He got off to such a slow start before locking in. For some people, it's a change of scenery they need. For some people, it's a change of coach. Some people just grow into different animals when they get older. My favorite example is always going to be international Messi. It's funny because international Messi wasn't even that bad of a flop the way it's made out to be. He was just disappointing by his standards. The 2006 World Cup, when he was just 18, he was arguably Argentina's best or at least second best player. 2010, I'll admit he was a letdown as well as in the 2011 Copa America, but the 2014 World Cup, he was brilliant throughout the tournament and still won the Golden Ball despite the loss in the final. The 2015 Copa America, he lost in the final and won Player of the Tournament again, although he rejected it this time. I don't blame him. When they gave him that World Cup Player of the Tournament right after swallowing an extra time L, he looked like somebody shot his cat and then ran it over with an 18-wheeler. 2016 Copa, he was good but lost in the final again. If we're being honest, the narrative that Messi was an international choker probably shouldn't have stuck the way it did, but the lack of a trophy made it hard to argue against. What's transpired in the last 3 or 4 years has been nothing short of dominant. He took hella L's, then locked in and decided to just not lose for a while and got some trophies. Finally, having a more fluid and better coached Argentina squad for the first time in his career did help. Those older teams had better names but worse chemistry and poor structure. What am I really getting at here? To be honest, if I wanted to make it some motivational shit, I'd say something like, you control your own destiny. Don't let any narratives that surround you dictate where you end up. You can always work harder and prove people wrong and blah, blah, blah. Not gonna lie though, I'd say the real message we should take from this is that you shouldn't let a big ass head stop you from being successful. His forehead would be mean as hell if he let his hair grow. God damn, he knew he had to cut that shit off. Now he walk around looking like egghead. He was hooping though, so can we really talk shit? Anyway, thanks for watching. Catch y'all later.